Welcome to Corrective Consciousness episode 56, the podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. I am your host, Vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And I'm PyroJackFrost.
So, this week we have a little bit of different things going on here. It looks like a little bit less than usual, but I think maybe we might be able to get to an extra question if that happens. So
what?
Let's keep our
I want to.
We
go
can
to
never
bed.
do more than one question.
Fingers crossed here. So, without further ado, Pyro, go ahead.
All right, yeah, like was mentioned, a little bit shorter this week. I will say that I've been continuing Final Fantasy X. I almost actually gave up again. It's so. You know,
It took me a second.
So I guess I'll talk a little bit about why I almost gave up, because like I said, there's not much going on. So I don't know. It's like I understand why people like Final Fantasy X, and there are things to like about it, but there are a lot of things in it that are like pissing me off for stupid reasons sometimes, partially because I don't want to actually take the time to enjoy the systems in place in the game. I just want to beat the game. All right, so
do you think
let's start from the top.
It's
the story
old, or do you think it's just not aging well, or is it just something inherently wrong with it?
Well, I think it's something inherently wrong with me. I got a whole list here. The story isn't the best. The characters aren't the best. Like, the world is really cool, because the whole idea of the world is that people can't escape death. It's just about the world's called Spira because there's a never-ending spiral of death.
Oh.
That the world gets destroyed and reborn, or preventing death from coming, I guess you could say. So, because sin is just going to destroy the world, but the problem is that every summoner who defeats sin, whatever aeon they use to defeat sin, becomes the next sin.
Oh, wow.
So there's no way you can avoid it. You just have to prolong it. And it's interesting because all the people in the world like continually talk about how they're trying to get along in life, knowing that death is going to come eventually. So it's kind of depressing. But the characters are useless in it. Like, other than Tidus and Yuna, the main two characters, everyone else is basically doesn't need to be there. They could just be generic characters. They don't need to be any specific characters. Like Lulu, the black mage, and Waka, the guy who attacks with a soccer ball. Basically are just guardians. That's about it. They have no purpose of the story other than that. Riku, her only purpose is she saved Tidus at the beginning of the game, and her dad is the one who owns the airship. But again, that could have been gotten in any other way. And honestly, the game is pretty linear, so you don't even need an airship, and you don't even get the airship until the last dungeon.
Oh,
so
wow.
The airship is pretty useless too. The only other character and Kimahri is even especially useless, just like Waka and Lulu, because he's a guardian. He's also useless in battle, which makes him.
But Kimahri is the cat guy.
Yeah, whatever you want to call him.
Like the Red 13 guy.
Yeah, and then Auron is pretty useful for the story, but again, not that important. So that's that. The story itself is kind of weird, and I'm not a fan anyway. But I will say the biggest things that annoy me. The sphere grid is cool. I really like that idea, which, for those of you who have not actually played 10, think of a maze, a labyrinth of dots and lines connecting them.
Whistles and toots.
Yes. That's actually what I was going to say, but I decided to go with dots and lines. So, and instead of gaining levels, you gain sphere points, which allow you to move along the grid. And every node on the grid is some stat bonus. And that's the only way to increase your stats, is from the sphere grid. You don't gain inherent stats from leveling up. The annoying part of it is if you don't think through your actions, and you're constantly moving back and forth through the grid, you're wasting valuable SP. There's not a level cap, so you can continue level forever, but each sphere point takes more experience to get than the last one. So if you're wasting time moving back and forth between nodes, then it's just you're making the game harder for yourself on purpose. Now, on the other hand, you can finish every person's portion of the sphere grid by the end of the game. so they can become as powerful as they probably need to be, but still, it's kind of annoying.
Now, you said that for leveling up does not give you any inherent stats. So I'm assuming leveling up just gives you spear points. It's like Yakuza, where like you've leveled up, so I'm just telling you now, so you can modify yourself however you see fit when you go to the pause menu, like that kind of thing.
It's basically just like that.
Okay. And by the way, one other thing, real quick, because Vice had joked about whistles and toots, like from Shut Up and Jam Gaiden. But speaking of which, I was actually going to bring up Tales of Games myself, the makers of that game. You know what would be really cool is if they could work on Final Fantasy X, so they could give you the ability to play a new game plus an Albed. Wouldn't that be nice?
No.
So yeah, the other system that the game has that's a cool idea, but I think because of this cool idea, they made some of the bosses, and from that point, like normal enemies, a pain in the ass. So the gameplay element is the fact that you can use items to add stuff to your armor and weapons. For instance, if you use 30 remedies, your armor can get like zombie proof, let's say, which zombie is a status effect.
Yeah.
And so it costs a lot. So like, another thing is if you use 20 sphere orbs, you can gain like strength plus 10. Oh, that adds something else to it. You know the sphere grid, how you use the sphere points to gain stats? That's not it. You also have to have an item that relates to that stat. So if you don't have any items that relate to that stat, then no matter how many sphere points you have, you're probably not going to move, so you don't have to move backwards. So that's kind of annoying too. But because of the whole equipment thing and armor and a weapon thing that you can add stuff to it, some of the bosses are really annoying. So the boss that I gave up on the first time I gave up was a fight against Seymour, who anyone who knows a little bit about the games knows that he's a villain in the game. Because his boss, there's actually like two characters in the boss. There's like him and this little guy that helps him out. They attack very quickly one after the other. And if they're attacking Seymour then the other guy, Seymour uses a Lance of Atrophy on you, which turns you into a zombie. And then the kicker is his helper casts Full Life on you.
And that's the killer.
What do you think Full Life does to a zombie?
Yeah, it's like FF8, it just kills.
It's like really dumb because you can't slow them either. They're both immune to slow and delay effects, so you have to somehow make your party members with haste and agility to go between them. It's
wow.
Well,
awkward.
no, you know what you could also do, even though it's horrible, is you could just throw zombie cures at your party at random in case they get hit.
Well, yeah, so that's the other thing, is you could always just cure the person of zombie, but that like wastes valuable turns.
Yeah.
I think the way that they expected it was you have your armor have zombie proof.
Okay.
And hey, then that whole thing is useless.
Yeah.
But again, it costs a lot of items to put zombie proof on one set of armor. And I'm not going to grind for these items so all my characters can proof against it. Although, I'm going to mention the next boss is a zombie kind of boss too, which is really annoying because in the beginning, first of all,
Can you
the whole
heal
part
on him to damage him?
No, he's not a zombie.
Oh, okay.
He just makes you a zombie. So the part about that's annoying is then you can't even heal yourself. So he'll keep doing damage to you, but you can't heal yourself because you're a zombie. So again, you had to somehow get rid of it or become immune to it. Then the next boss is annoying because, first of all, in her first form, if you do physical attacks on her, she casts blind on you. That almost always hits. If you try to hit her with magic, she casts silence on you. And if you affect her in any other way, she casts sleep on you. So you first had to try to avoid that.
Oh, God.
Then in her second form, she casts zombie on you. Well, she turns all of your party members into zombies. And if you cure all but one of them, she'll turn you all back to zombies again. And then she casts cure and regen on you.
Wow.
So for those of you who know Final Fantasy, regen gives you a little bit of life each turn. As a zombie, it does a little bit of damage each turn.
Basically like poison.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I did is I'm like, you know what, I'm going to cast Reflect on myself. So it'll just reflect all the cures and regens away from me. But that just means
If she's
I'm
healing herself.
It got really annoying. And to add to it, immediately when she starts her third form, she casts Mega Death, which, if you're not a zombie, it instant kills you.
That's so
So
annoying.
if you somehow have zombie proof on your armor, right? You can't win that battle. Because immediately when she goes to the third form, she's like, hey, none of you are zombies, you're all dead. Game over.
That's so annoying.
It's really, really annoying. And it's just like, there's so many cool things about the game and the battle system, but it seems like every single boss tries to not let you do that cool thing. Like, Aeons are a big thing of it. They're the summons in that game. They basically take up a whole... that's your party when you summon an Aeon.
Yeah.
But Seymour, his turn immediately after you summon an Aeon just basically instant kills it. So it's basically useless using Aeons on him unless you're just going to pull him out to do a quick attack on him and then say, all right, bye. It was nice knowing you. There's so many things that's just like, I don't know why they added to the game because, again, even some normal enemies avoid stuff like that. There's some normal enemies that are basically like mini bosses. Ugh. And it's like, I beat those guys and then I feel like I can't fight anything else. So
that reminds me. I forgot if I've brought it up on this podcast before. I think we actually might have. I think we had gotten a question of what we prefer, fixed save points or auto-saving. But I think I'm going to mention this before. But one of my friends had been grinding for like an hour, and it was either FF10 or FF10 2. But it might have been regular FF10. And just when he was about to go save after that grinding session, he just runs into a King Malboro, and that just ended his game.
Yep, that sounds like Final Fantasy X.
Just first thing, bad breath. Like, well, you're done.
Yeah, I like auto saving almost exclusively. Like, I can't imagine more. Like, because
as a Let's Player, I hate it.
Yeah, I get that, but like I love it for
for basic gameplay, it's great.
For basic gameplay, and also I find that like manual saving, like F5ing, like whenever
it breaks the game.
It breaks the game, yeah.
It's like in-game save states, even before save states were a thing.
Yeah, I had a friend who played like Half-Life 2 like that, and just like constantly won because like he would just die and then restart. And I can't play like that. I can't even bring myself to do it.
I like how 12 does it, where it's kind of like there's auto-saves when you change maps, but then the only other way to save it manually is at save points.
That's decent.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But again, I didn't expect to talk about Final Fantasy X for like 15 minutes and complain about it. But again, the whole bosses being annoying is mainly because I didn't want to have to worry about using that armor customization and weapon customization, although that would have added something to the game. It's just not what I want to do.
Gotcha.
But other than that, I got back into Diablo 3. I'm trying out the Necromancer. They're pretty cool. But that's been about my week.
Would you recommend that as a way of getting into Diablo? Would the third one be a good entry point?
Definitely. They basically designed it to be good for starter people who don't know anything about the story.
That's nice of them.
It's a lot more accessible than the other ones too.
Yeah, because I have two. I've had two for the longest time, and I just never installed it, and always kind of like was intimidated by the fact that I know it's a time sink.
Well, the funny thing is
that's what they are, though.
Well, the funny thing is before Diablo 3 came out, I heard that 2 was like the one to play.
Yeah, it definitely is, and they all are amazing games. But again, they're just like they are time sinks. Like that's what they are. You could beat Diablo 3 in let's say 10 hours, maybe less. But that's not the point of the game. The point of the game isn't to beat it. The point of the game is to keep killing enemies in higher difficulties so you can get better armor to kill enemies on higher difficulties. It's just an endless loop.
Yes, that's the fun of it, yeah.
That's the fun of it. And I honestly would tell a lot of people that if I could only pick one game to play for like forever, it would either be Diablo 3 or like Final Fantasy 14. Because I know that they could last me forever. And that's assuming that the companies continue to update them.
Sure.
But that would probably be
actually,
it.
Once again, that reminds me kind of any of the Yakuza games. Not that they're that long, but you can just go straight from one story point to another, but if you do, even though the game is very story driven, you're really, really missing the point, because doing all the not even grinding, just the side missions, not even like going to the casino and gambling, just the actual side missions where people are like, I need help with something, that's kind of the meat of the game, even though the story is pretty long. Like
Zelda's like that too, like Breath of the Wild.
Oh god, I would imagine, especially with Breath of the Wild. Yeah, you could just go from one dungeon to another, but like,
that's not the point.
They designed the open world game for a reason.
Yeah, so I mean that's basically been my week. There's been some small things. I know that this coming week I'm going to probably be getting back into Final Fantasy 14 because there's an event going on. I know nothing about it other than that it's a new event. I've been messing with Unity because I plan on trying to work on a game in my free time. Just not something I plan on selling or anything, just to have fun and try it out.
Yeah.
But that's been my week. So, Lotus Prince,
Okay.
why don't you take it from here?
I guess at this point I really only have a couple things to mention. The first is that my Let's Play of Inside finally just started to go public. So, at long last, people will get to see the spiritual successor to Limbo. It's a pretty rockin' game. I just wanted to give that one a shout out because I think I've mentioned this before. It is like Limbo, but those games are totally not interchangeable. Like, they definitely each do their own thing.
I heard it was really good. I heard it was a lot better than Limbo.
They both have their own really positive qualities, but at least at this point, I would probably argue that Inside is generally better and has more of a, again, not a story, but more of a sense of, I don't even, like, I'm going to say story progression, but you don't really know what the story is. You can only really infer. Whereas Limbo, you went from the forest to places more and more industrial, but that's about as far as that went. Like, with Limbo, the puzzles got harder and more creative. With Inside, they did too, but you're like, oh, I think I'm getting closer to whatever it is I'm looking for. Like, with Limbo, you suddenly realized you've beaten the game. And when you do, yes, it was a conclusive moment, especially the way they handled it, but with Inside, you get to a certain point, and you're like, oh, okay, this is endgame right about now. Like, you can tell. The only thing I would say Limbo clearly does better is, I would say, gives you, like, a nemesis. It goes away early enough, but that spider is just...
I love that spider.
Like, when you first see that thing, and you hear, like, it has its own little... I guess I'll call it theme, but it's just a rumbling. Like when Darth Vader uses the Force the first time, when he chokes the guy at the table, you hear that just rumbling. It's that, and you're like, oh no. Inside doesn't quite do that.
I really love that spider. It's one of my top favorite bosses, even though it's not particularly challenging once you know how to beat him. But he's just kind of
it's a living
imposing.
puzzle. Yeah,
he's very imposing.
Like Inside has a couple guard dogs chasing you, but it doesn't have the nemesis like you again feel that the spider does. That thing was terrifying. Even though it didn't last for very long, it's like this is how this is gonna be. But Inside's ending, obviously I'm not gonna say what it is, but when you see it start to happen, you're like, oh, what? And the game gets nuts from that point on. Like, it gets nuts. Also, Inside has more gameplay mechanics. Unlike the boy in Limbo, in Inside you can swim. And so that just...
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, dive in the water, go, swim around. So, I mean, you don't have very much air. You're a normal kid, but you can swim and do things underwater. So that changes things considerably. Because with Limbo, water is just a death trap. Mm-hmm. So I look forward to seeing people's reactions to Inside. Also, Limbo had a secret area in the game, but Inside has a secret ending. So there's that to consider as well. It's a New Game Plus only kind of ending, but it's definitely interesting. Otherwise, the game I've been playing... Oh, it is. And otherwise, the game I've been playing lately, because Inside I had actually played a while back. I'm just uploading it now. But the game I've been playing lately, I was wondering what to do after Attack on Titan, Muso. Well, I went to Berserk, Muso, so I'm playing Berserk now. I gotta play me some Berserk.
Another time sink. Talk about time sinks, I should say.
Oh, I know. Now, the thing with Berserk, definite positives and negatives. I mean, it is great doing... Like, Berserk always should have been a Muso. Like, the Dreamcast games had an interesting story, but the gameplay was pretty clunky. The PS2 game, the gameplay was great. But, not that it should have been a Muso, but it felt like it was a Muso game before a Muso game. And by the way, just to clarify, when I say Muso, for anyone who doesn't know, it means like the Dynasty Warriors games where you're just pressing square and just murdering hordes of enemies.
Legions.
Yeah, and that's what Guts does. Even in the manga, he's like kills... There's a particular manga frame where he kills 4 guys in one swing. Like, that's actually how Guts operates. So, it's really exciting to be able to play through more than the Eclipse. And with the PS2 game, you actually went all the way up to meeting Grunbeld. I assume... I'm not done with the story yet, but I assume that PS4 Berserk's going to go further than that because... You know, we're talking PS2 and PS4. A lot has happened in the manga since Grunbeld. A lot. I know even with its slow output. We are way ahead of 10 years ago.
Sure.
So it'll be cool to see. Now, downsides, I mean, like, it plays like any other Musou game. I kind of liked the ability in the PS2 game to slowly build up your invisible meter until you could insta-kill enemies with a single strike. But then again, you didn't have so many enemies on screen as you do in a Musou game. Because with the Berserk Musou game, you build up your meter and you press your kill everything in my immediate area button, like a lot of other Musous, and it's cool, but I kind of miss the PS2 game a little bit. But what I like is the nods to the previous games. You still can select your sub-weapons and use them, and they have a recharge time, just like in the PS2 game. Your movement and attack style is rather similar to how it was in the PS2. Before you activate your kill everybody move, like you build up your meter to go into frenzy mode, and you build up your frenzy meter to activate kill everybody. So when you're in frenzy mode, regular Berserk had that, where you just went red and dealt more damage with a single strike. So like there's a lot of nods to this PS2 Japanese exclusive game, which is kind of cool. Also, you get other costumes. You can, I'm sure you could eventually get Guts' Berserker armor. Why the hell wouldn't you? You can unlock other characters like Zod, which is a freaking pleasure. And by the way, like I said, to kill everybody on screen, you have to build up your meter within your meter. Zod has a meter within a meter within a meter, because you build up. You build up your frenzy meter, and then you go, angry, and from there you build up your kill everybody on screen meter, and you can do that. But if you don't want to kill everybody on screen when your meter's full, you can instead transform into his apostle form and just go ballistic on everybody. And from there, you can do its kill everybody in the vicinity move if you build up the meter again. So it's like, yes. Now, as far as story progression goes, I think Zod is the only weird character you unlock. Everyone else is like a character in Guts' party post-Eclipse, and you can get Casca and Griffith early on. I think you can actually unlock more people, though, by doing like the endless dungeon mode. It's called endless, but it's 100 floors of pain.
Can you unlock Femto, you think?
I almost hope that you don't, because that would be like, he's supposed to be too cool for you. Like, he's only been in the manga like twice ever, right? When you first meet him, and like in the very beginning where he's like, I don't need to fight you. Like, I don't think you should unlock Femto, and I highly doubt that you can, because basically his job is to stand there and repel you, and he could do more than that, but now you're not worth my time, But however, you can unlock Wyald. I always want to say Wild, but I bet you it's Wild because it sounds like wild. But he was that absolutely terrifying guy who led the Black Dog army, who just exists to have fun by just murdering everybody, and his own men are terrified of him. And if you can unlock him, I'm sure you can go into apostle form as well. So that's kind of cool. What I also thought was actually really interesting was you can fight the Count. From chapter 1 of the manga.
Oh, geez, the guy was eating ears?
Yeah, the apostle, the apostle before you know what apostles are. Like, in Berserk, the anime, you fight this big, Guts fights this big, King Cobra snake guy. You can actually fight him, too, in the game, which I thought was interesting. And the Count as well, but you deal with him in chronological order. So after the Eclipse, you're like, I hate all demons, I'm going to kill anyone I see. And then you run to the Count. And I'm
first
like,
bad guy he fights, right?
In the manga, yeah, because the manga
yeah.
starts at the present, but then goes back to the Band of the Hawk. But yeah, you eventually work your way up to the Count. But the Count's in the game? That's freaking cool. I just wouldn't have expected that. That's just interesting. Now, if I had to give a major downside to the game, it would be most of the cutscenes that I've seen so far, because they're not in-game cutscenes. They're straight-up clips from the anime OVA trilogy, and those are freaking gorgeous, don't get me wrong, but, if I wanted to watch the anime, then I would. I always love the cutscenes in these Musou games, because let's just see what happens in the game, but just cutting to a clip of a movie is just like the Yu Yu Hakusho fighting game did that for the PS2. That was a crappy game, but that's besides the point. It's like the cutscenes would just be parts of the episodes, and it's like, dude, I can watch these on TV at the time. So the PS4 game doing that, again, it's a gorgeous set of movies, but like I wish they'd done in-game graphics, and they do sometimes when whatever's in the movie is not adequate. Like Wales, I don't think is in the movies, so they did in-game stuff with him, and I was happy to see that, you know. So I wish they had done more of that. But at the game now, at the point to where he meets Puck, so he still doesn't like him at this point. It's just like, oh, it's a stupid little elf, get away from me. But we'll be dealing with that in the future, so I'm excited to see how this plays out in game form and unlock costumes and weird stuff for the characters and just get the whole kill everything myself experience. Oh, one last thing about Muso. I had mentioned it has a lot of callbacks to the PS2 game. One thing I thought was kind of funny, if memory serves, I think it even has a callback to the Dreamcast game, where if you have a long loading sequence, then you just see Puck on screen just above the word loading, but if you move the D-pad, then you can actually move him around, and a little mini game starts where Behelets fall from the sky, and the little spiky balls he has, little burrs or whatever, also fall, and you have to avoid the burrs and pick up the Behelets, and you can play it as long as you want, even when you're ready to continue to the next thing, and just go for a high score just for no reason. I think the Dreamcast unlocked that, like, post-game. I thought that was just kind of amusing.
It is.
And the last thing is, we did a certain thing this week. We'll talk about it more in Reactive Consciousness, but after heading home from that, I actually stopped by at Next Level near you, Vice, and I picked up a few things because
what'd you get?
They were doing, he was doing one of those, once a month, Saturday, everybody get together and trade stuff and discount,
yeah, it was a block
events.
party.
Yeah. So I picked up Complete in Box, because I actually had the game already, but disc only for like a couple bucks. But I picked up Complete in Box Wirehead for the Sega CD, because I'm just a sucker for those.
That's an interesting name.
Oh, it actually makes a lot of sense too. You're
pretty sure it does.
You're controlling the dude. What's funny is it's one of those games that just goes off into like crazy directions. Like there's no way you're gonna predict where it goes. It's just for an FMV game, it's pretty ambitious. I also picked up both Goemon games for the N64, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon and Goemon's Great Adventure. I've played Mystical Ninja before, but never Goemon's Great Adventure. I know nothing about it. I didn't even know it was a 2D game until it was told, because the other one for the N64 was like a Zelda wannabe. It was like a 3D like adventure.
Yeah. The second one is considered one of the best games in the series.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that, because the only other Goemon game I've played was the one on the Super Nintendo that made it to America, and that game was awesome. So to hear that it's not even the best Super Nintendo one, and that the N64 one was even better, like, wow, okay, like I'm excited already.
The big shame about that series is the vast majority of it never came here.
Yeah,
and its best entries other than that second N64 game never made it here, and still haven't, even with fan translations and stuff coming out.
And speaking of fan translations, you need them too, because those games are text heavy.
Oh yeah. There's a group that is slowly but surely moving forward through all of the Goemon games, but they started on the NES games.
Oh,
so,
real old school.
Yeah, so there's actually, I think there's 5 Goemon games before the NES, including the arcade game.
Oh wow, there's that many before?
Goemon has like 15 to 20 games. Like there's a lot going on. Like we only got 3 of them in America. Yeah,
there's an arcade game called Mr. Goemon. And then there is a game that's sort of like Legend of the Mystical, 2 games that are sort of like Legend of the Mystical Ninja, and then there are 2 RPGs for the NES, for the Famicom rather. And I think they're almost done the Famicom games. I think there's only one more left.
And by the way, the way Goemon looks, he's got that radical, Akira Toriyama looking spiky hair, and like he's got that smirk. No, old Goemon, even in the games, used to look like the Japanese paintings depiction of Goemon, where it had like the really long head with the white face and like the sad face, like the looking face, like it was taken off of a piece of like old school like Edo artwork. So that's rather interesting as well.
Yeah, and I just hope that group continues because there are 3 games for the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom that haven't been translated yet, and they're like the best games in the series.
Yeah, and even the not so great ones are great. Like, you know, just in comparison to like I think it was like 2 or 4 was like considered the best one. So I couldn't believe that an American release, because statistically, you know, like 3 out of like 20, that's pretty low, and the fact that it was on an N64 is considered one of the best ones in the series, that's impressive. Especially because the PS1 games, which we did not get, are generally considered to be not very good. So like N64 all of a sudden lucked out like crazy with Goemon. Even the Mystical Ninja one, it's one of those games where like you loved it when you played it, but if you were to play it now, it might not age so well, but it's still pretty good. Like
it's like Brave Fencer Musashi now. It's not nearly as good as when you played it back then.
Although it still has a great sense of humor and a freaking like sitcom laugh track, which I know that's a callback to one of the Super Famicom games, but that really took me by surprise when I first saw it. That was hilarious. Like, who sees that coming? The super Japanese, like, you know, Ganbare Goemon game, when you hear, like, laughter from, like, I Love Lucy. It's like, what? It's the weirdest thing. The last thing I got, because I was going to just get those 3 games, but you know, Nick at Next Level was like, well, wait a minute, it's buy 3 get 1 free today. I was like, oh, what? So I also picked,
wow.
Yeah, so I also
what a nice surprise.
I know. So I also picked up Bomberman 64 because I actually used to own that game in box back in the day, but I got rid of it and regretted doing so. So now
Good choice.
Now I got cart only, but I got it back. And he actually had the second Bomberman game there too, but I hear it's okay. It's just mainly interesting because of its rarity. And sure enough, it was like, you know, over $100 because that game really is crazy rare at this point. So I had to hold off on that one.
Bomberman 64 1 was really good.
Yeah.
And then I think Bomberman Hero was the next best, and then 2, I think in the terms
Hero
of
was
the
like
64
Second Attack,
ones.
right? Like, no, I mean Hero was GameCube, right? And Second Attack was 64.
There are 3
Bombermans for 64.
Bomberman games
wow.
for N64. Yeah.
Okay. Well, got me there. That's
yeah,
because I don't think I've ever seen Bomberman Hero then.
But Bomberman Hero was the second game released, and probably the best one, if you ask me.
Okay.
It's really good.
Yeah, but regular Bomberman 64 is very different from other Bomberman games, but it does a good job with what it does. It's like Bomberman in 3D, because a lot of transitions to 3D were really not good. And I don't know if you want to go back and play like single-player Bomberman at this point, like compared to other single-player Bomberman campaigns. Like the Saturn one is killer, but it's good at what it does. It's very interesting for sure. And the multiplayer is still amazing on the 64. So that's always exciting. So that has been my week. So how about you, Vice?
So I've continued to play Rise of the Tomb Raider. I'm starting to like it a little bit more now that the structure has opened up. So the game has a bunch of different hubs, and it's getting more and more hubs, and the hub that I'm in currently has friendly NPCs in it, so you get a lot more side missions than you used to.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also played the DLC, and I really liked the DLC. I thought it was the best part of the game so far, which is oddly enough, because, you know, usually DLC's kind of tacked on. Every once in a while, there's some really good DLCs out there. I mean, like...
Yeah, the Souls games know what they're doing with DLC.
Yeah, I mean, by and large, DLC's gotten better over time, but, you know, Bioshock 2's DLC is legendary. It's really good. Bioshock Infinite's is really good.
Let's say, yeah.
Yeah, and then... You know, kind of like the ones for the Bethesda games are kind of crapshoots. Like, some of them are really awesome, some of them are kind of meh.
Mm-hmm.
Like
so you never know which ones are good until later. But this one was really good. I really enjoyed it. The Baba Yaga missions, and now that it's opening up and there's more stuff to do, I'm kind of enjoying it. But it still I think needs a little bit of a sense of humor. It needs some levity. And I don't understand why nobody pointed that out. You need to either have a side character that adds some levity, or have Lara make some, you know, smart-ass remarks. I know she's not supposed to be Drake, but...
well, the funny thing is, old Lara Croft would make quips, but...
Yeah, well, that's kind of my point, is... you need to have something doing something.
Well, here's my perspective on this. I don't think that you need levity unless the game is like oppressive. But even if it's
kind of is.
Okay, there's that. But like even if it's like really serious though, I don't need a joke. Just so long as I still empathize with the character, because you were saying that Lara was like not really likable in the game, and that's what would turn me off. She's one of the least
likable protagonists I've ever played.
Like that. That's what would turn me
off. Wow.
Like I don't need Daxter hanging around, but like at the same time, like I need a reason to want to follow this person.
I don't mean like she's evil or whatever. She's almost actually psychopathic. Like she's very hard to empathize with because she's killing things constantly. You're rewarded to killing like every little animal around you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're just killing bunnies and shit for no good reason. I mean, like you're collecting their pelts, but like I hope that the game points it out towards the end that you're basically just killing everything in front of you.
Wouldn't that be hilarious though? You finally beat the bad guy, and behind you is just like scorched earth, like everything. It's just like this desert.
She's just killing everything constantly and hard to identify with. You know, it's just...
Well, I think it depends too on the character, because in Horizon Zero Dawn, Aloy, you're always going around hunting animals to craft better bags, but like she's a hunter. Like that's how she was born and raised. I mean, I guess you could say that Lara became that sort of person because of what happened to her.
Well, she did it to survive, though. She I don't think she ever wanted to overcompensate by like 16 deer or whatever.
Yeah, no. She's just like in this game, you're rewarded. You get XP for killing everything in front of you, and there's always like some little bunny running around in front of you. There's always like a birds flying around. I guess to give you something to shoot if you want to, but at the same time, it's kind of encouraging you to kill them all.
I think what you're saying, Vice, is that you are the psycho because you're the one controlling the character.
Yeah, because I'm given the choice.
It's a social commentary.
I'm getting rewarded for it, so the game wants me to do it.
Yeah, like, that was exactly my complaint about Deus Ex Human Revolution. Play the game any way you want, but this is the way that gives you the most XP. And it's like, oh man.
Yeah. So once again, maybe it's one of those slow burn things where like eventually they kind of point these things out, and maybe she kind of gets a little lighter towards the end is how I would play it. Like if make her kind of like this at the beginning again of the game, but kind of like, you know, get her to learn over time, you know, that her choices are her own. The things that she's doing in this game are not to save the world. She's doing it because of a personal thing, just to accomplish what her dad never could, which is a stupid reason to do something. She's killing people and putting herself in mortal danger over.
No, I was just about to say, like,
stupid quest.
No, I was just about to say, like, that is a dream to aspire to, but when you're slaughtering everybody, it's like, well, now wait a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a life or death situation. She's not trying to save anybody.
Yeah, because that was the thing in the first game, like the reboot. The whole point was to get off an island that you were supernaturally trapped on with a bunch of psychopathic killers. So like, it's everything you do is defense at that point. Even when you're the one making the attack, like they would have attacked first anyway. Yeah,
she's completely here by choice. Yeah. So hopefully that's part of the lesson of the game. I mean, I also played Super Cyborg, which I don't think I got a chance to talk about this. I played this in previous weeks. This was a newish indie game that kind of aspires to be like Contra and kind of borrows the aesthetics of Probotector, to be specific, the European like hack of Contra.
Yeah, where everyone's robots.
Well, in Germany, you couldn't have like humanoid characters killing each other with guns and stuff. So on Nintendo, so they changed the main characters to be robots. So
it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon syndrome in America.
Hero Turtles, yeah.
Well, no, even in America, the foot soldiers were robots.
Oh, same thing with G.I. Joe.
Yeah,
same thing. So, but yeah, so Super Cyborg is really good. It plays like an old Contra game. So it plays specifically like the 8-bit ones, Super C and Contra rather than Contra 3 and Hardcore. But it's very good. I recommend people buy it. It's pretty cheap. I think it's under $5 now. It's a very good game. I really like it. It's not as good as Contra Rebirth, but what is? Some of the high level Contra games
legendary.
But yeah. I
was just gonna say the robotic llama level with like robot ninjas throwing shurikens in way too many directions.
Oh, I love that game so much, and it just hits me in all the feels.
The game's hard as shit, but you don't care.
This is the game that like fans of Konami believe Konami should be, and then that Konami actually published it. It's just so good. But I also played the original Contra on NES because my roommate actually got me back into playing old stuff because he came home from work and he was just like, you know what I really want to do? I really want to take your Nintendo for a spin.
Wow.
When he got home from work, because I have this big setup. You guys have seen it.
Yep.
It has all the old systems and you can play anything you want on my EverDrives and all that stuff. So he came home and he's like, do you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I was like, do I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I have every Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, let me tell you. So he wanted to play TMNT II.
Yeah, there we go.
That's
what I grew up with. Yeah.
So, and in fact, he's playing it right now as we speak. I hear the music thumping down there. Because
the music really is very good, especially the first level.
I have all my systems hooked up through an amplifier and some really great speakers. So particularly like NES games with Konami music is really, really good on it. Like better than I ever experienced when I was a kid, because it's, these really great speakers that have way better sound quality than the ones that were around back in the 90s. So plus I just played it off of a TV back then too.
I suddenly have a desire to get Pizza Hut.
Oh yeah.
Even though I live in New Jersey and would never consider that.
The great thing about it is, I consider myself a video game nerd, but like he knows this game like the back of his hand. He's like, okay, I'm gonna move past this pixel, and all the bad guys are gonna start coming out. And lo and behold, he's like riding a bike. He hasn't played that game in 20 years.
Like I never even made it past the beginning of level 3 back when I was a kid. Like I died really early in level 3, and I was like, well, because Bebop was hard.
So then we went to a bar last Thursday, and just were hanging out after work, trying to blow off some steam from work. He's like, dude, I want to play Turtles again. And I was like, dude, have you ever played Turtles in Time? And he's just like, Turtles in Time?
He doesn't know?
Man, you wait.
I barely played that, and I still have nostalgia for it.
Turtles in Time is the pinnacle of Super Nintendo awesomeness. Like, I love Turtles in Time so much. So, we played it, and he's just like, dude, this game is awesome. I was like, what did I tell you? It's like TMNT II, but way better.
I can't believe that they stole boss music from Turtles Hyperstone Heist.
Yeah. Genesis didn't in that case.
The funny thing is, like, I actually really liked Hyperstone Heist, and it's kind of cool hearing the boss theme Genesis version compared to Super Nintendo. Yeah. Like it's its own thing.
I really like Hyperstone Heist. It's just
I know. Turtles in Time, like
when you put it next to Turtles in Time, it's a pale imitation of it. But I got back into that, and so I was like, okay, well, now I'm going to play some Genesis, and I played some Castlevania Bloodlines and some Streets of Rage 2, just because, and I was pumping all that music, that beautiful music on those
both
two
of those games. That music is just, that's it, that's the end.
We're done. Pinnacle of musical soundtracks. I hope that Bloodlines comes out on vinyl one of these days, because
that'd be interesting.
On vinyl, they've gotten through Castlevanias 1 through 4 so far, so I hope they continue it. I know they're going to do Symphony of the Night, but I hope they don't forget that there are a couple others. There's Dracula X, and there's also the Super Nintendo Dracula X, which has good music as well.
Rondo of Blood.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's Dracula. And I mentioned this before, but even though it's newer, it would also be cool to hear the arcade game, with the
Haunted Castle?
PlayStation Move whip controls.
Oh, that game.
Yeah, not Haunted Castle. Although that game was cool too, but Castlevania Arcade.
Yeah. I hope they continue to do it, because Castlevania has some of the best music of all time throughout
It does.
its entire
Castlevania's
series.
music
Even
is
the N64
insane.
games have fantastic fucking music. So
Yeah, N64's music, I don't remember a lot of that music, honestly, but I remember the menus theme, and I remember the regular boss music, which is still kind of stuck in my head a little bit.
it would also be really nice to hear like great mastered versions of the GBA soundtracks, because the Game Boy Advance didn't have its own sound hardware, so it had to use CPU cycles in order to play music. Like every game had its own sound engine, essentially. So the GBA Castlevania games had very compressed soundtracks.
They're still pretty good though.
They're very good, but the sound quality isn't good. So I would hope that they would put out like fully mastered, vinyl versions of these, just so you can actually hear.
Oh sure, it reminds me of when they
version.
released the soundtrack for Street Fighter 2, like the Arcade Perfect soundtrack, which was not normally officially available.
Yeah. And then I kind of just wanted to mention this really quickly. So there has been this series of game mods updates on a game mod that I've been following, where this guy has basically been making a special edition of Streets of Rage 3 and making it basically all it could be.
Okay, that's actually really great, because there are 2 Streets of Rage 3s.
So essentially what he's doing is this guy's name is Red Crimson, and he is adding the secret characters as selectable from the very beginning of the game.
Nice.
Which is good. So you can be Shiva and you can be Ash and Rue from the very beginning of the game, or Victi if you should.
I still can't believe that you could play as Shiva like in the actual game, because Shiva was crazy in 2.
Yeah, and it has the difficulty of the Japanese difficulty and the Japanese story.
Thank you.
But translated.
I would like the
English.
American one as an option, but that's still really cool.
Well, you do have the American one as an option with a different ROM.
Okay,
but
that's true.
Anyway, so this is really cool, and in his latest update, he added Adam from Streets of Rage 1.
Yeah, Adam. Man, the thing, like, Adam was so cool in Streets of Rage 1, and then he just never showed up again. Because in Streets of Rage 2, the plot was that he was captured, so you know you're not playing as him. But he just wasn't back in 3.
In that one. Yeah, it's pretty cool. He also added Max from Streets of Rage 2 to Streets of Rage 3.
Nice.
So you have, like, this great version of it, and, he reworked he basically made his own sprites for Adam, because
you kind of have to.
Those sprites are too old from the first one. They're not
one
in the same
does
style
not.
as the third game.
Yeah, 1 and 2 together. That is no.
And he made his own sprinting animations for Max, because there's no
you would
sprinting
have to.
in Streets of Rage 2.
That's true.
So he's done a really great job.
And
but,
for Adam, I guess.
When he added Adam, he didn't take out the apparently he must have made it with a PAL version of the game, and he didn't take out the region lock, so you can't play it with, you can't play it with properly for one reason or another on proper hardware. And he released it on the Sega Genesis collection on Steam, where you can publish mods.
Oh wow.
But in that you can only have the option of playing the American versions of games. Yeah. So you still can't play it on that. So you need to play it on an emulator. That's the only way you can play it right now. And that's if you like find where the file is and do all this funky stuff. So hopefully he'll update it. So
yeah, I'm sure he will.
But I had to mention that. So having said that, we can move on to questions here.
Sure. So Dracologist asks, what are your feelings on games where you'll see a recurring NPC or a villain, and then suddenly you play as them for a little while? For example, he mentioned Yasha in Asura's Wrath. In Asura's Wrath, Yasha has like a couple of levels. There are little things like that where all of a sudden control just switches to this person. Like now you're playing not like he joins your party like Magus and Chrono Trigger, but now you're just playing as this other person for a little while, or even for a long while. Like you I know it doesn't really work for Metal Gear Solid 2, but you know what I mean. stuff like that. Like, what's your take on games like that?
Well, I actually have one that I specifically like from this, and I doubt anybody else will pick it because this is one of my personal favorite games that it just seems like only I like. Nobody ever talks about it. It's Ghost Hunter for PS2.
Oh, I was gonna pick that.
You were both gonna pick that?
You weren't.
Oh,
No, I was
okay.
just-
I was like, I have that game, but I haven't gotten that far. Like, I've only played like a few minutes of it.
So, spoiler alert. I might ruin this for you, but it's still really cool.
Yeah.
Well, based on the fact that you just brought this up with this question, obviously it's a spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool. The main character actually dies in while fighting the big boss.
Oh.
In the
Spoilers.
Yeah, geez.
And what ends up happening is your helper, you actually take control of your helper robot while he tries to go get your ghost to put you back in your body.
That's fantastic.
It's really awesome, and you don't expect it. You don't expect it at all. And this game is so cool. It's such a fun game, and it gets no attention at all. And it has some really inventive things like in it like that. So I definitely recommend people play that game because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, speaking of which, another cool game that gets no attention at all is on PS3 and I think 360, El Shaddai Ascension of the Metatron. There's, I mean, no matter who I talk about in that game, nobody knows who the hell it is, so it barely even matters. But let's just say there's a part where a boss you fight suddenly becomes the playable character because, yeah, similar case, your main character is incapacitated for a little while. But what also makes things refreshing is when the other playable character has a very distinctive play style. Like, all of a sudden you have a double jump, or you lose the double jump, or you have a different attack, or something like that. Otherwise, you're just playing as the same character with a different skin.
Couldn't you play as Virgil in one of the Devil May Cry games?
You could, but that was its own mode.
That was okay.
Yeah, that wasn't like you're going through the story and now you're Virgil for a second. That was Devil May Cry 3, and there was just Virgil mode on the special edition of Devil May Cry 3, whatever that was called. Because the original version just didn't have that. So that was really cool too, because he definitely had a very distinctive play style. Like, it was really cool to see, like, you know, all the boss moves used on you. Those aren't just one player only, you know, enemy AI. Like, you can actually do those moves. I love when games let you do that. Instead of just, like, you just had basic attacks. All the cool stuff was for when you're fighting against them. Like, no, you could do Virgil's moves. Like, I just love stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other games that had this. But, like, I just know, in general, I think if done well, such as the games you've mentioned, or whatever, it could be, it's a really good storytelling technique. And I really like that idea where you are fighting against the villain, and then you play as him and realize that he isn't the villain. Like, that kind of story beat is actually really cool.
Symphony of the Night has kind of like those modes where you could play as the NPCs. Like, you could play as
the Axe Knight.
Well, you could play as the Axe Knight, but you could also play as Richter, and you could play as what's her face,
Maria.
Maria.
I mean, that is true, but those are separate modes, though. Like, the question is more directed, because I actually talked with Dracologist a bit about this. Like, he was specifically focusing on, like, in the story, you suddenly discover that this happens. Like, No More Heroes 2 kind of did this, but the characters you play as weren't recurring. It's just all of a sudden,
oh, Shinobu.
Yeah, remember this person? Oh, what?
Yeah,
like,
that was awesome.
That really was. Seeing Destroy Man again, oh man, that was the best.
He's
still a dick.
The left one.
Yeah, shake hands. Which one? Doesn't matter. Choose one. The one that's throbbing. Like, what an asshole. That guy had what was coming to him, man. Yeah, it's actually a little difficult, though, for me to think of, like, story progression, suddenly play as the other character. Oh, well, I don't know if this quite counts, because you're not actually playing as a different character, but Chrono Cross pulled something like this, sort of.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That was really good.
And considering who you were playing as, that was quite a reveal. It's like, what? That was very interesting for sure.
Yeah, like that whole bit, like the relationship between Surge and Lynx. That's all I'll say. But that whole bit is just wacky.
I need to play that game.
It was
only ever played
sure.
the first game.
I don't know. I'm kind of running out of ideas, but yeah.
We could quickly answer the second question here.
Yeah, this is a shorter one. So Falcathon asks, if you could speak 2 new languages, which would you pick?
Albed and...
Yes! So I can understand New Game Plus of Shut Up and Jam Gaiden.
No, my serious answer is... my serious answer would be Chinese for multiple reasons. 1, because that's what my girlfriend's family speaks in. 2, because I know that it's probably one of the most used languages in the world, just in terms of population-wise. And then my for fun answer would be Japanese, because
Weeaboo.
I'm a weeaboo. Yeah, sure.
I would read new manga when they come out. No, I would go in something of a similar direction. My for fun answer would probably be Japanese. My serious answer, I would probably go... I probably would actually go with Chinese, because I have a lot of... Chinese students, considering the kind of classes I teach. Some Korean...
You want to order food on Christmas the right way.
Exactly. No, some Korean students, but mostly Chinese. And then, like, Chinese would be my definite answer, and my other language would be either Spanish or Japanese.
So, just like the you two, of course, my fun one would be Japanese, just because of like all the stuff that we like. I mean.
So I could play Goemon without needing a fan translation.
I mean, it's just one of those things where we love so many things about Japan and Japanese culture, and wanting to go there and all that stuff. So that definitely. But my for real one would be Italian, because of my father actually came over from Italy when he was 5 years old. So I have a lot of family over in Italy. That I've never met or only met a little bit, and I really would like to connect with them and speak with them. And right now, I can only really understand the gist of conversations because of my knowledge of other Romance languages like Spanish and English. I can understand the gist of what people are saying, but I can't say anything back to them. So like I get the general conversation. A lot of times, what's going on around me, I know when they're pissed off, but that's because it's impossible not to tell when an Italian person's pissed off. Yeah. But that's mostly it. Yeah, because of familial reasons and wanting to connect to my culture.
Sure.
I mean, the other culture I have is very waspy, so I got English covered there. So I think that's pretty much it for this week. So, we want to thank you, all of our fans that contributed questions. We do need more. We're starting to dwindle. So please do put some effort into giving us some questions. We love doing them. So please keep doing it. And we'll basically take whatever question you throw at us, unless it's, offensive.
Or just a stupid question.
Jeez.
Unless you're an idiot. And please submit to the YouTube and SoundCloud pages, and while there, give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of the encouragement keeps the show going. You can also catch us on Thursdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at our week and our life. Finally, you can friend me as Vysethebold, VYSETHEBOLD, on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
And you could follow me on
no, you brought that back.
I was really kind of hoping I was hoping that would stay dead forever. You can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince, all one word. And if you are so inclined, if you want to see my videos early, get in on exclusive streams, and even select upcoming games for me to Let's Play, then consider stopping by my Patreon account at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me, just like normally, as PyroJackFrost and Cloudoid540. Places.
Sounds good. We'll get you on Thursday on Reactive, guys.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye.